I've definitely had a lot of thoughts as to how lucky I was. We weren't a group that was low on experience or education, but we still got something wrong.
As I turned around, I saw Eric flying down the slope on his butt with his board in front of him, moving at an incredible speed.
Brogno disappeared right away as the slab he was on moved. It just started fracturing and he fell into it, like fell backwards into it, and it was just gone so fast. And we were watching this go down, and then everything got real at that point.
Supposed to stare like into the camera. Oh, okay, cool. So it's like I'm talking to you. That's easier. Okay. I'd just done 9 days of hill setup, a kicking horse in a row, so was really excited about just getting out for a fun day with some friends. Was picked up by Mark and Brad, which are two of the guys that were in our group of 5 that live in Golden here. And then we made our way to the pass, where we met up with 2 other friends that were meeting us that were coming from Revelstoke. So yeah, December 1st was still early, so got our permits and took a look at the bulletin and talked a little bit about what our objectives were for the day.
It takes about 3.5 hours to get up to the call of Grizzly Couloir.
As soon as you come around the corner, that first slide path, and you can see it right from the bottom, right in the sun, and it looked really good. So everybody's pretty pumped.
Once we got to the ridge, the winds had picked up quite intensely. We're in the moderate range, gusting to strong, so blowing quite a bit of snow. So once me and Joel got to the ridge, we sympathetically triggered what turned out to be a 2.5. So we felt a big settlement and then heard a bunch of rumbling on the other side, and the guys that were below us could see snow moving and rock moving down the slope, and I guess that was our first indicator of instability.
So we continued up from there, and we got up to the top of the couloir.
I think that's when we kind of realized we were in a different feature than what we planned for.
It's not really a couloir, it's more of a bowl feature that funnels into a tight choke. So there's quite a bit of, the start zone is quite large.
There were definitely some concerns, and we kind of talked about it amongst each other in small groups, 2 and 3 people. We didn't ever really get all 5 of us together.
If everybody would have just stopped and we said, okay, let's throw the positives and negatives out, and I think we would have done that as a group, it would have been an easy decision, All of us have turned around from stuff before.
So we tried to cut a couple of chunks of cornice off with a cornice rope that we had with us. Weren't able to cut off the size of pieces that we were hoping for a slope test. So the next kind of discussion was, whether or not we felt like it would be safe to step on the slope.
We discussed a shot placement if we had one, where we'd put it, and so a lot of those things are definitely a bit of warning signs that we were in our minds but may have been neglected.
The skier's right-hand side of the bowl looked quite loaded, and that was also another concern that was raised. But like I said, we never had that group discussion to bring up all these points, to bring them all together and make our final decision. It just ended up that Eric and myself ended up on the slope. Eric making the first ski cut.
Before getting on the slope and putting the cut in, what we had discussed was One of our main concerns was possibly triggering deeper instability from a shallower point and it propagating into the deeper snowpack. I wanted to stay in the guts of it where the snowpack was deep so that I wasn't affecting what our concern was, a shallower part of the snowpack.
You know, we're all staying up there in Brogno. Said, well, I'll put a cut in, you know? And I think in my mind, I was like, It's like, I don't know if I'd want to ski cut that. And I think that was something I should have, you know, if I don't feel comfortable doing it, I don't think anybody should be doing it.
So I jumped in, put a cut in. It felt good, to be honest. It was, there's no cracking, no wumping, nothing. No signs of instability.
For whatever reason, we decided to put 2 people on the slope, ski cutting it. Never had a discussion why we were doing that. It's definitely not something that I ever do at work or have ever practiced in the backcountry before. Getting 2 people on slope is just not a very smart idea. So myself and Eric are on the slope. Eric's about 5 meters above me and just off to the side. And at that point I did a kick turn, and as I put down my left ski, it initiated the fracture probably 1 or 2 meters above me. And then I just started moving down slope. I could hear, I remember Brad yelling, "Avalanche!" What? I was moving a bit slower, I guess, in the mass of snow, and I managed to slow myself down enough to get out of the main flow. And I was sliding down on my back on the bed surface, trying to dig in my heels. That obviously didn't work. That only took, you know, a matter of a second or 2 to get into that position. Flipped over on my stomach. I had both poles at that time. Both skis were gone. Ditched one pole, and I was on my stomach and just rammed the handle of the ski pole into the bed surface enough that it started to slow me down, and I was able to dig in the toes of my boots to slow myself down enough to self-arrest on the slope. The guys are saying that I probably traveled close to halfway down the chute, roughly.
Managed to self-arrest, which was amazing. We were pretty happy, obviously, to see that. And he managed to call up to one of the guys that was on the ridge and let them know that he was okay, he had no injuries. And then I kind of, you know, realized that I was still in a pretty bad place. We did not have a rope. Obviously, if we had had a rope, we would have been tied up for the ski cut. But so what we decided was, from where I was, my best bet was to try and get to the rock that I had mentioned. That was probably about 2 or 3 meters away from me, to the skier's left. I didn't even make it 2 feet probably, and the hang fire settled and released. And from that point, things happened pretty quick. I remember the whole event. According to Mark and Brad and the other people in the group, it was more like 6 seconds from top to bottom.
Joel was standing there beside me, had his gear on, and I just looked at Joel. I'm like, you got to get in there. You got to go and start the search. Like, who knows what's happened down there? You need to start digging, and we'll get to you somehow. Yeah. So Joel jumped in, got skiing down real quick, and by the time Joel had gotten in and started making his way down, we could see Mark. He re-emerged from behind the rocks. We knew he was okay, and we could see Brogno on the surface.
I was sliding on the bed surface, so sliding very fast. Went through a fair bit of rock because of the fact that it had already released and close to ground. I broke my femur, ended up breaking 5 ribs, and had a partially collapsed lung from that. And then was kind of thinking, like, yeah, this, you know, I don't really know how this is going to turn out.
So Joel skied down to him. I started walking down the bed surface. Made it down to Joel and Eric. Joel at that time called, I think he called 911. He was going to initiate a helicopter rescue because we were in a pretty shitty spot.
Doing the flyover, I evaluated it and I determined that it was reasonable for the rescue team to be inserted for a short period of time. It was getting later, the weather was poor, and we had very limited flying time. We flew back down to the staging area and geared ourselves up, and myself and one other slung underneath a helicopter.
Basically, they bring people in by, they're secured to a long line underneath the helicopter, anywhere from 50 to 150 feet below the helicopter. And
I heard Golden phone numbers. I'm from Golden, and I heard unfamiliar names. So I thought, oh, there's a chance I know these people, but nothing's familiar yet. So just carry on like a normal rescue situation.
We had to move really quickly. That's the bottom line, is that we had very little time, and we had to move really quite quickly in order to get the patient out before dark.
So, you know, your heart's pumping. It's like, I've practiced this a lot. I've never actually done it. So I'm just focusing on holding on to all the equipment that I have dangling off me and unclip. And then if I look up, and the first face I see is Mark Herbison, who's a good friend of mine. And Mark just looked at me and said, "Hi, Jones."
And he just looked at me and his face dropped.
So I just walked right over and looking for some direction from Sylvia, who was already on the scene, trying to figure out how I could help her. And got over the patient, who they had packaged and stabilized, and realized it was Brogno. And yeah, that was like, I still, it's a weird feeling when I think about that moment. That was, for me, that whole day boils down to realizing who it was. And yeah.
The patient was amazing. He was stoic. I think he was in a lot of pain, and he was really, really quite amazing.
And then I flew with Eric back down to Rogers Pass, which was about a 5-minute flight, and it seemed a hell of a lot longer than that. Just, it's different when it's your buddy. So Eric and I were talking the whole while I was talking. He wasn't really talking that much, but trying to give him updates. Like, I can see the ambulance, you're gonna be warm soon kind of thing. He was cold. He was really cold.
And it was determined that the injuries to the patient were serious enough that he had to fly all the way to Golden immediately, rather than going by ground in the ambulance.
He was in a great deal of pain, breaking your femur, and fortunately he was counter-indicated for any pain relief due to his injury in his chest. So he was just toughing it out, super strong.
I poked my head into the ambulance once me and Joel were back on the ground. I just said that we'd see him at the hospital and everything was going to be all right.
We got him out of the ambulance and into the helicopter, and then he was gone. And then it was quiet, and at that moment I had the first time to reflect on what had just happened.
It was a pretty emotional time. I hadn't talked to Brad or Sam since I left the ridge, since I went for my ride. So, it was good to see their faces and good to talk about the event.
Went over to the Parks building, and like walking into the room there and seeing Mark and Joel, like everybody it was hard. Everybody wanted to cry, like we were all like holding back tears, and just like everybody's being like.
When I saw Jones down in the compound, gave him a huge hug, and it's very emotional. Almost came to tears, but I was quite glad to be giving him a big hug at that moment.
So I still didn't know what the outcome was going to be. I immediately called my wife, who was in Golden, and asked her if she could contact Christina, Eric's partner, and she did that, and got Christina. I think she picked her up, and it was like the second half of the situation. Like the field part was done, and my part was done. And then we called Christina.
Put 4 wires through the
the 3 different pieces to kind of bring them all together and line them up. So they put a steel titanium rod through the middle of my femur, and there's 2 screws that go in to attach the rod to my down close to the knee. And there were a couple of incisions that they put in up high here for placing the rod in. And then there's one more incision up high where they put 2 big pins in that go through the bone as well into my hip to secure it at the top.
Yeah, so it was really amazing to see the support that the town of Golden and everyone that knew Eric had offered him that night at the hospital and for the remainder of his recovery period.
What's happened as a result of it, with respect to the support I've received from my friends and the community, is if anything, it's just kind of strengthened mine and my wife's feelings about living here and calling Golden home.
I know you had ordered a new split board from Pryor, but I canceled that.
You're skiing out loud! You were to start skiing!
Canceled that and thought we'd do something on our own for you.
Yeah!
Custom
Wow. That's amazing.
Glad you're here, Brock. No?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, dude.
Thank you.
I can't wait to ride it. Like, I can't wait.
Got a lot of people that care about you.
I was going to say, the pins actually look very similar to what the pins do look like.
How to use it, Brock?
Anyhow, I didn't realize how much it mattered to me until now. Going to a situation like that and being close to it's very difficult to remain just to function in a professional way. That was my biggest challenge.
What happened is always a possibility. There was never a time when I didn't believe that, you know, when you put yourself in that environment, that you don't expose yourself at some point to risk. You mitigate it as best you can. But yeah, I feel good. I'm stoked to be back up here. I'm really glad that Andrew was able to join us today and have Purvis in here. And my body's feeling pretty good, really. you know, the leg is, I don't know, I'd say maybe around like 80%, 85%, maybe something like that. It's, I'm happy with where it's at, for sure. The process from then till now, there's definitely been ups and downs.
I deal with that every time I step onto a slope. This whole winter is in the back of my mind, or in the front of my mind pretty much. Every day I was out, am I making the right decision? Have I thought about all the factors that, in the decision-making process, that we should step on this slope or we shouldn't? So yeah, every day. I'm just pretty stoked that we're able to tell our story and not have someone tell it for us. Yeah, I still haven't told my folks about what happened. It's been 5 months and I still don't have the courage to tell my parents that I almost threw away the gift they gave me. I'm sorry. I love you. Yeah.
The incident as it happened is really, really unfortunate. And this was a very, very knowledgeable group of people. And unfortunately, they made an error in judgment. Yeah. But once the incident occurred, their professionalism and their experience in dealing with it and really helping us do our job really made the whole thing much better than had they not been there.
There's always more to to learn, and yeah, I think that would be the message I'd hope people take home from it is you can always learn from mistakes and from these sort of events.
Said Crow was coming too. I was like, all I was thinking, I was like, hope he's not coming because he wants to do another part of the interview right now or something.